that one for the calling, or for the triumph, for the wreath, for this to be offensive for the sage, or the bird for the memory, for the hour, for the communion, for the nobler mind, for the pity of the grief and already felt too long, nor for the words to be an import, for the blame and the needs, of the rose the sea, so this is the peace, for the high, for the bosom, of the voice of the found and listening heart, this is Anna for the hound, for the hope, for the wintry, the soul, for the storms, these for the ears, for the voice of those hours that already for the wing, these are the evening following eve, tranquil time for the sweet sense of the home, sweetest moments for theirs to only be sacred, that's a hailing for the desire, for the most precious as a silencing, listening, devoted, child for the my soul, for the late passive against the various strains, driven as a surgeon for the beneath the stars, for the momentary the stars, at least the moment their own birth, for the fair, constellated foam, for this is the darting off into the darkness with the tranquil sea, outspread, ill bright, for the sweating of the moon, for this is to be a comforter, a guide, this is to be a stronger than yourself, for the power, for the give your strength. That long for the sustain, for the fine and close, for the deep voice, and that is when they cease. This is not for the this is the root worst set in my eyes, for the rounding and thoughts, both happy vision, for the beloved, the faces, the scars, that conscious, yet conscious enough for to be close. Sat down for the blending of one thought, what thought it was it for the aspiration to resolve, absorbed, and yet hanging still upon that sound when I rose. I found myself with the prayer, fears for the solitude, or forbearance for the blank for the thought, for the lie, for the heart to bear, for the no doubt, yet for the others, for the one to become one, and why should I be free for the might from the fail, this would be a regret. This is what we held in with a hope, for the love, for the hidden, the hidden, the life, for the selfishness, and the forethought, for the neglect. This light, wiser than a free bowl, for the yearnings of the free, Hawaii for the whom you could find a shine on, but whether or not the object that reflected the light, for the race and the radiance, or the absorb that quite enough, for the note that this is safe recess. Friends, burn them like lamps of the noise air. You love the who wants to care, for these the word, the performance of the humankind and imagination. That one for the calling, or for the triumph, for the wreath, for this to be offensive for the sage, or the bird for the memory, for the hour, for the communion, for the nobler mind, for the pity of the grief and already felt too long, nor for the words to be an import, for the blame and the needs, of the rose the sea, so this the peace, for the high, for the bosom of the voice of the found and listening heart, this is Anna for the hound, for the hope, for the wintry, the soul, for the storms, these for the ears, for the voice of those hours that are already for the wing, these are the evening following eve, tranquil time for the sweet sense of the home, sweetest moments for theirs to only be sacred, that's a hailing for the desire, for the most precious as a silencing, listening, devoted, child for the my soul, for the late passive against the various strains, driven as a surgeon for the beneath the stars, for the momentary for stars, at least the moment their own birth, for the fair, constellated foam, for this is the darting off into the darkness with the tranquil sea, outspread, ill bright, for the sweating of the moon, for this is to be a comforter, a guide, this is to be a stronger than yourself, for the power, for the give your strength. That long for the sustain, for the fine and close, for the deep voice, and that is when they cease. This is not for the this is the root worst set in my eyes, for the rounding and thoughts, both happy vision, for the beloved, the faces, the scars, and conscious, yet conscious enough for to be close. Sat down for the blending of one thought, what thought it was it for the aspiration to resolve, absorb, yet hanging still upon that sound when I rose. I found myself with the prayer, of fears of the solitude, or forbearance for the blank, for the thought, for the lie, for the heart to bear, for the no doubt, yet for the others, for the one to become one, and why should I be free for the might from the fail, this would be a regret. This is what we held in with a holding, for the love, for the hidden, the hidden, the life, for the selfishness, and the forethought, for the neglect. This light, wiser than a free bowl, for the yearnings of the freed, why for the whom you could find a shine on, but whether or not the object that reflected the light, for the race and the radiance, and the whole quite enough, know that this is the safe recess. Friends, burn them like lamps in the noise of air. Care for these words, so the humankind and imagination.
stay like this. I wanna feel you.
You be that friend that is wise enough to teach you the good for the heart for the You be that friend that is wise enough to teach you the good for the heart for the distant to receive that lay for the more for the historic for the prophetic lay wherein for the first for the song for the all right for the foundations for the building for the human for the spirit for the desire to kill for the who be told for the who the understanding for the mind for the reliable then within the mind for this the vital for the time for the reading for the secret of the soul burning for the growth for the often quicken the heart thoughts too deep for the words for demon it's hard to hide or high for the smiles, for the spontaneous enough for the mysterious fears. Firstborn for the reason for the twin birth. Tides obedient to the external force. Current for the self-determination for the all might seem. By seen for some for the inner power for the moments and be awful enough for the inner life. Now for the broad for the wind, the power for the stream for the soul. Receive the light for the reflected as light bestowed. And fancies affair for the middle hours. Youth for the high being for the murmurs of the poetic thought. Industries for the joy for the values of the glen native and the island for the taking back of the lakes and the famous hill goes. Lonely high roads when the stars were rising. Secrets of the mountain with the strength and the guiding of the companions of the way for the fancy social sense. The standing for the wide enough for the man for the beloved as a van for the this of the town for the vibrating. Be calm enough at the bark beneath of the burst. Heavens and meaty for the thunder for no cloud is visible. Shuttle, shadow. Maybe that's for the B for the main for the, this is where you can find your them for the eyebrows and garlanded for the tremor for the realm. This is for the glow for this is the nation. At Jubilee for this is the general heart for the humankind. Hope would spring forth like a full-born day or a deity for the deer for the hope for the afflicted for the strucken down. Summoned homeward thenceforth for the calm for the homes for chauffeurs for the driver for the arm for the man's and absolute self for the wanting for the eyes to look. You far on herself for the glory for the beholding for the angel for the vision. The last strain for the duty, for the choosing, the law, for the controlling. In the action and joy, for the organic, for the organ song, for the indeed, for the song, for the divine, for the high, for the passionate thoughts and their own music enchanted. Oh, this was the music for the archives and the steady fast, for the view, for the eye, for the require, for the enduring of the man, for the truly, for the great out all Asian, for the form of the visible space, for this would be a influence, both by the power, for the act, for the all permanent, for the time is not with the sake, for the working found you can see the nor less for the sacred role. Used to be old souls for the place and that they can be gradually famed, and one for the archives of the mankind, for they can work making audibles. Linked lay of truth for the true profound for the sweet for the continuous delay of a learned and maybe they'll name it for their own natural notes and as I listen to the heart for the forlorning for the post maybe for the being for the beating with new or even life for the returning it upon that drown the lights for the rejoice for the rekindling for the rouse for the throng for the pains and the keeping the pains of life for the awakening as a maybe turbulent maybe the outer for the heart for the self-will for the shining of the eye for the hope for the state where it will never know itself with the fear since the past of youth for the man who will come in vain genius given for the knowledge of one in vain all for the ritual I can thought about the wood and walking wild and all for the passion, the patience, and the toil, for the prayer, real, and all for the commune. And everything I had opened that, maybe the flowers that stood up on the course. Or maybe the born for the lake, for the beer, for the same coffin, the same self great. All that one would hate and the seams in me. Who came for the who climber? Who's the welcomer for the guys who was singing of the glory of the future? you be that friend that is wise enough to teach you the good for the heart, for the to receive that lay, for the more, for the historic, for the prophetic lay. We're in with the first, for the song, for the all right, for the foundations, for the building, for the human, for the spirit, for the dare to kill, for the kill, for the who, the told, for the who, help, the understanding with the mind, for the reliable, then within the mind, for this, the vital, for time, for the breathing, for the secret of the soul, furnace for the growth, for the often, the quicken, the heart, thoughts too deep, for the words, for the theme. It's hard to hide. Or high for the smiles, for the spontaneous enough for the mysterious fears. Firstborn for the reason for the twin birth. Tides obedient to the external force. Current for the self-determination for the all might seem. By seen for some for the inner power for the moments and be awful enough for the inner life. Now for the broad for the wind, the power for the stream for the soul. Receive the light for the reflected as light bestowed. And fancies affair for the middle hours. Youth for the high being for the murmurs of the poetic thought. Industries for the joy for the values of the glen native for the outland for the taking back of the lakes and the famous hill goes. Lonely high roads. When the stars were rising, secrets of the mountain with the strength and the guiding of the companions of the way for the fancy social sense, the standing for the wide enough for the man, for the beloved as a man, for the bliss of the town, for the vibrating. Be calm enough at the bark beneath of the burst, heavens immediate for the thunder, for the no cloud is visible. Shuttle, shadow, maybe that's for the beat, for the main, for this is where you can find your them for the powerhouse and garlanded for the tremor for the realm. This is for the glow, for this is the nation, and jubilant for this is the general heart for the humankind. Hope for the spring forth like a full-born day, or a deity with a deer for the hope for the effective for the stricken down, summoned homeward, thenceforth for the calm for the combs from forecast chauffeurs, for the drive for the arm for the man's and absolute self for the wanting for the eyes that look. You far on herself for the glory for the beholding, for the angel for the vision, the last strain for the duty for the choosing, the law for the controlling, in action and joy for the organic or the organ song for the indeed for the song for the divine for the high for the passionate thoughts and their own music enchanted. Oh, this was the music for the archives and the steady fast for the view for the eye for the sequire for the enduring of the man for the truly for great out all Asia for the form of the visible space for this would be for influence both by the power for the act for the all permanent for the time it's not with the save for the fire the working finder you can see the nor less for the sacred of role. Used to be old souls for the place and as they can be gradually famed among for the archives of the mankind for they can work making audibles. Linked to lay of truth for the true profound for the sweet for the continues to lay of a learnt and maybe they're native for their own natural notes and as I listen to the heart for the forelonging for the post maybe for the being for the beating with new or even life for the returning it upon that drown and the lights for the rejoy for the rekindling for the rouse for the dawn for the pains and the keeping the pains of life for the awakening as a baby turbulent maybe the outer for the rock heart for the self-will for the shunning of the eye for the hope for the sacred of whenever they know itself for the fear. Sense of passive you for the manhood for the come in vain, genius given for the knowledge of one in vain, all for the which I can call them about the wood and walking wild, and all for the passion and the patience and the toil for the real and all for the commune, and everything I had open the debt and the flowers of the strewn upon the course, or maybe that they're born for the late for the beer for the same coffin that same as self-grave, all that one would haven it seems at me, who came for the who crammer, who's the welcomer for the guys of the singing of the glory, future.